Hello, Gestaltung, Digital students. Welcome to lesson 7 on sectional elevation making using Make2D in Rhino. The first thing we do, as always, with this Make2D function is to file and duplicate your original model and rename it with today's date, the original title, and sectional elevation. Once you've done that, create a new layer called Sectional. Usually I use capitals. Sublayers I use non-capitals. Sectional elevation. Okay, and give that a color. So I'm going to give this nice bright color, tangerine. Tangerine Dream. Okay, I'm going to move that layer to the top. Right, so we're going to draw a line of where we want our sectional elevation cut to be using the polyline tool. And this time, last time I took a section north-south through the site. This time I'm going to take a section, well, west-east through the site, well, northwest, southeast through the site, and yeah, we want to include something, an interesting section through our design. Make sure we've got projects selected. I'm going to go for something roughly, I'm going to take it all the way through to here. We're going to crop out the extents later, so better to have a line that's longer than too short. Let's go with something like that, okay, and hit enter. That's our section elevation line. Now, with the section elevation, the principle is that you have a section line which is your cut line, which is usually thicker, and then it shows detail behind that line, which is usually fainter in the background, and so you get more information. For example, here you have, well, this is mostly just a section line with background elements displayed softly with a lighter line quality, as you can see here. This is a very simple example of a sectional elevation. We're going to do roughly the same. So we've drawn our... okay, sorry, I did that on the wrong layer. This is very, very important to point out. When you draw a line, make sure you have your layer selected that you're drawing it on. So I'm going to move that object to the correct layer. So now I can see it's gone, or it's turned to orange. Okay, and then we're going to draw a box using 3-point command, using the start and the end point of our line. And then we're also going to select the depth of what we want to see in the sectional elevation. So I'm going to select about as deep as, so I can see this building. I would say that that would be round about ideal. Okay, so that's now our sectional elevation extent window. But now what we need to do is to trim away and hide everything that's outside of this box, and we only want to keep any of the geometry that is inside this box, and I'll show you how to do that. First thing we have to do is to rotate this box to be horizontal flat in our plan view. So we're going to select everything using Command A, and we're going to rotate by selecting one end. Sometimes it can be a bit tricky to see where your original section line is when everything's yellow, but I can see that it's here, and it's here. There we go. And I have orthographic selected, which means it snaps to horizontal straight without me having to press any further function. Now then, will it snap? we go. Now it's snapped. If it doesn't snap on the ortho, which is this horizontal line, hold the Shift key down, and it simply will snap on ortho. Voila. Give it some time to process all the information that you're feeding it. There we go. So now I have my section box horizontal. So we're going to begin the process of clipping out everything that's outside of clipping and hide, using the clip and hide command. So I'm going to hide this surface here, hide, and hit enter to repeat that again. So now I have got rid of those surfaces. I know I can safely select everything here, apart from this barn, because we want to keep the barn trace coming through the model, so I want to deselect that. But I'm safe, and those trees as well. I'm safe to hide that. Also, this is safe to hide. This is a little bit of a long process, but we'll get there eventually. And the result is worth it, I think. Hide doesn't actually delete the data. It's just hiding it from the display of the software. You can simply get all the data back with the command show, and it shows everything all in one go that you've hidden. I'm going to ungroup those trees so I can select them individually. I can group several times. Now they're free to select individually. No, let's just ungroup again. Now the edge of this building comes into the frame, so we don't want to delete that. Not delete, but hide, you know. Okay, so that's roughly about all the. That's roughly about our selection that we're going to need. So now we're going to use the trim command using our sectional elevation box as our clipping tool. So select cutting objects, enter, and select objects to trim. So now we're going to trim everything outside of this box here. And you'll see you get a very nice, clean, efficient trim. Just go with everything that overlaps that line. You can also drag the window to multiple select objects, and it will simply delete multiple objects in one go. It's much more simple. Should have told you that from the beginning. Alright, we're getting somewhere, aren't we? Okay. So, make sure that nothing else is touching that line that you want to be within the elevation later. And to me that looks pretty good. We just got a few bits to select here. All right, so we're safe. We've done it. Now we're going to hide the rest of the geometries using the hide command. Now you can see these objects are still grouped, so we have to ungroup these with ungroup, and now we can simply hide. Just these final bits, and these objects are also grouped, so I have to ungroup these. There we go. And I can see that I've just missed this building, so I'm just going to use the trim command again. Select the cutting object, which is a boundary curve, enter, and the object outside that curve. Great, so now we have our sectional elevation transect. We're just going to group all of those objects for now. So if I come to 4 views, you can see that it's trimmed me out this nice section. So that's all good and well. We're going to now close the front of this surface, because if I use the make 2D command in our front view, which is the view that we will be taking later, I select shaded, we will see inside of these forms, which we don't actually want. We just want a flat plane along our section elevation line. So to do that, we have to close all the open surfaces. And we're going to use our polyline tool to do that. So first we're going to draw the outline of all the surfaces that need to be closed. Just to show you, we do actually need a floor for this model. To do that, you can simply duplicate, ungroup these objects. We can duplicate this by this boundary object by Command C, Command V. That should have duplicated, so now we have, 2. And I'm going to move one of those boundary curves down to the floor level. Move, vertical, and point to move from, and point to move to. I've got project on, so turn project off. We're actually going below the C-plane this time. And then I'm going to use the command planar surf to generate me a floor for our section. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. We're going to close this front edge by selecting the polyline tool. This time have project off, because we're going to want to select off the C-plane. Be nice and accurate with this selection. We can see that it's cut a whole volume through here and here. You can see that we need to come down in this intersection for the street and come up for the curb. And it's only all the surfaces that are within the section cut. put a little detail here. Now here you'll see it's cutting through a section of a curve. So we actually need to draw that curve that it's cutting through. So I'm just going to select the outside of that curved object. This isn't so accurate, but it gives you an idea. You can be much more careful with yourself. Sometimes it will select a point that's, yeah, and here it's also selected a point that is outside of our selection. We can simply go back and reselect the front of this. Helps to find a view that makes the selection points much easier. Hopefully that's not selected yet. Okay, and we just keep going on our section through all the objects that are being intersected. You need to have intersect selected on your snapping options as well. You can see that that is another curve here, so we just have to select the edge of. That's probably selected something. No, that's okay. This does take a little while, but I can show you another way to do this in class that is probably more efficient. Okay, now I can see that. Okay, so that's our section line. We just need to close it now. That's just closing. So that's our section line curve. And now we're going to type the command planar surf to make to close this surface. But as you can see, it's got self-intersecting input curves. Sometimes this command won't work because due to the fact that you've selected by accident off the C-plane. So therefore, the curve and the top view isn't flat and therefore is not planar and will not make a surface. And if that happens, then you need to project that curve that you've just made for the surface. Let's delete that and I'll show you how to troubleshoot that problem if it may arise. So you need to project this in your front view to C-plane. So with that curve selected, we select project to C-plane. Delete input objects, yes. And if you come to your top view, your plan, you can see it's generated a surface which is a front projection all the way down here because that's where your C-plane is. So what you now need to do is select that and move it this time with project on. I need to move that back to the very point where you started, which we know is that. Now, if we come back, it's created me that curve will now be planar. It's been flattened to the front view. So I can now type in the command again, planar surf. And the other thing we're going to do with this surface that we've just created, so I'm going to go on cell last. I'm going to group all those objects we've just made. And I'm going to move them forward in our plan view by a small degree. With our project on, I'm going to move them forward away from the cut line, just a fraction. And this will ensure that we've got no intersecting geometries when we come to make our Make 2D. That operation will become more clear. And the next thing we have to do to organize the structure a little bit to get an understanding with the trees of what's foreground and what's background is we're going to group together our cut trees and call those front. We're going to group together our mid trees and call those mid, and group together our back trees and call those back, and then we're going to put those onto a separate layer. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you briefly. I want to close the surface of this cut tree. So I'm going to use the command for this, dupe edge, and then you select the edge that you want to duplicate and hit the enter command. That's made me a curve of the border, and now I'm going to use the command planar surf, and now that's made me a surface of a closed tree, and I've got that surface on my section elevation layer, which is what we want. So I'm going to do that for all of the trees. Hit enter to repeat the command. Oh, sorry, dupe face, dupe edge, sorry, and then select all of the edges that you want to duplicate. Hit enter, and now planar surf. There we go. And that's made as a cut, and also we can see that this barn structure is also open, and we also want to close that. So we're going to use the same command by first dupe edge, select the edge. You can see this is many separate edges. So you can either redraw this edge with the line tool, or select all the edges that want to be duplicated. Hit enter, and then before you do anything, hit command J or join, and that's joined that into a closed curve. And now we hit the command planar surf. That curve obviously wasn't planar, unfortunately, but that's not a problem. We're just going to make a 3-point rectangle. And select last. And try the command again. There we go. It's made me a planar surface. I'm going to group all of these surfaces that I have made. Well, actually, they're all on one layer, sectional elevation, because I've had that layer selected. So everything created with that layer selected has gone straight to that layer. And I'm going to group them anyway. Select objects on layer, and up from our floor. I don't want that selected. I'm just going to group those grouped. So I've now got those grouped. Great. So there we are. We're about ready to do the make 2D command, but one thing more is to prioritize these trees between front, mid, and back. But actually, I'm going to skip that process because I think it's overly complicated, and I can explain it further in class. No, we're just going to do the make 2D command and of this front elevation. And yeah, we're going to do one with the trees and one without the trees. In fact, these surfaces that I've grouped here, I'm going to have to ungroup because I've realized that those trees need to be actually on the same layer as the tree layer for good reason. So first I'm going to move those to the tree layer. Sorry for that. It's easy to change. I've got the tree layer here. I'm going to move those objects to the tree layer. And then I'm actually going to join the objects face to face using the command J tool, join. It's made me a single surface. Okay, well that's good. Right, so back to where we were. The front view is going to be our make 2D view. And yeah, let's just run that command. Double click front. If you like, you can create another view. So you can easily restore this view if you wish. It's not so necessary as it was in the plan. Okay, and now we're going to turn trees off. Let's see, turn those off. And I've still got, I'm also going to move these trees that were created in the section with the dupe faced. I'm going to move those trees abstract. And they'll disappear. Right, so that's no trees, just the urban geometry in our design that we want to see. So select everything, Command All, and run the command make 2D. Make sure you have maintain source layers on. Show viewport rectangle, that won't do anything this time, but I always have that on. Current view, and OK. And let it do its magic. It takes a little while to generate, because this time it's calculating quite a lot of geometry, especially with this train in the background. Give it some time to process. There we go. I think it's made. We're going to come to plan view now. We're going to type in the command zoom selected. So zoom selected, and there we have it. Fantastic. We have a make 2D with our cut line all on one layer, which we can join into one line again. And all of our hinter objects, so objects behind the cut line on their original layer. Great. So I'm going to group those just for the ease of working. Command G. That's now grouped everything. And I'm going to zoom extents because I want to now export the trees. Okay, come to our front view again. Right, so we're going to turn our trees on, but we also want a reference for our trees. We want a reference point. So I'm actually going to use this building again, which we used in the plan, which is actually this building here. You can select it in plan view if you like. Come to your front view. We're going to we're going to group everything again. Does that make sense? No. We're going to first select the building. And now we're going to turn on our trees. And now we're going to select objects on this layer, on trees abstract, on the sublayer. Select objects on this layer. Did not select somehow. Select objects on this layer. Okay, great. So that's just our trees selected. I'm going to group those for the ease of working. Come back to your front view and run the command make 2D again. It will only make 2D of the selected object, so you don't actually need to hide anything this time. Make 2D. This time, yeah, that's fine. Same options as last time. Maintain source layer, show viewport rectangle, but not show hidden lines. Okay, and hopefully that will process a little quicker. Yep. Come to plan. Type in the command zoom. Selected. And then we have our trees. This time, group again the objects, the trees that you've made. So now they're grouped, and we're going to move that with our project on from this reference point. We can actually delete that building. That would make it a bit easier. Ungroup those objects. I just don't want to duplicate that line. So I'm going to group those. Group. And I'm going to move with project selected, and I'm going to use that as my reference point. And I know that that's the edge of this building, so that's my new reference. That's the same reference point. And there we are. So we've got a sectional elevation with all our lines on the correct layer. You can see actually it's, if I'd had the other layers switched on, you would not have seen these trees. Those can be, you can always delete those later. But the fundamental of our make 2D is there, and we've got everything we need. So do as we've done before with everything else, select everything, export selected, file, export selected. I'm going to export that in the same folder as we have done for everything else. AutoCAD drawing, DWG. The name is today's date, Salacious's tour, sectional elevation, DWG. Great, that's everything we need for the export. 2004 polylines, export. And there we have a sectional elevation exported. And I'll show you how to create a viewport from that in Vectorworks with all of these drawings later. So goodbye for now, and see you soon.